Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Talking Throttle. I am just in the midst of preparing the first episode to go out, so you're gonna see this a few days later, but I thought there's a particular reason why I need to get episode 1 out as soon as I can without rushing it. But ideally, I would like to start posting my videos every Tuesday because I think, Talking Throttle Tuesday, it makes sense, I think. So this week I'm going to give you a bonus episode, which is this one. When it came to talking about the topic and what we're talking about, I was going back over the video that I'm going to be posting, episode 1. I don't think I've explained properly the history behind Mercedes and Red Bull and why it's such a big deal if Max does decide to leave Red Bull and go to Mercedes. I'm going to do my best and try and describe to you what happened in season 2021. Now, for the Formula 1 fans that are probably watching this video, you guys know what happened in 2021. And if you know me, I don't play about 2021. I am still angry about it to this day. You guys need to get as angry as I am because I can't be the only one that's viewing. I refuse. Everybody's getting mad. Everybody's gonna be mad. If I'm mad, everybody's gonna be mad. And then you will understand why Max leaving Red Bull to go to Mercedes is such a big deal in my eyes. 3 years ago, I moved into like a new apartment of mine, and I was sitting down, finished work, and I thought, oh, I need to put something on. I need to stay entertained. So I put on Drive to Survive, and let me tell you, I was hooked. It is such a good sports documentary, and if you haven't thought about getting into it, just watch it because it's a really good watch. I got to the 2021 season. I think after that season, I think Formula 1 did lose some fans. I spoke to people over the weekend and they were like, I know people that have stopped watching it since 2021, but then I also know people started watching it from 2021, so it's however you want to take it. Prior to the 2021 season, I'm going to be honest, we had back-to-back Lewis Hamilton dominance. So Lulu, we love us some Lulu. Lewis Hamilton, if you don't know, you better get to know. That's the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time, and you can argue with your door about most race wins at home, Lewis Hamilton. Most, we're talking about the most consecutive wins here, most consecutive wins there. Like, in his first season, I think if it wasn't for one event, Lewis would have came in and won a world championship as a rookie. Came to 2020 and he won that championship. Now that was his 7th, so that was record breaking anyway. He then equaled the great Michael Schumacher's record of 7 world championships. Then we came into season 2021 and then we bring in comes the Dutch King, Max Verstappen. Every single race, it was a battle between Max and Lewis, to the point where it came down to the final race of the season, and that should tell you how close it actually was. Whoever won that race would end up winning the championship. Now, for Lewis, as I've said, 7-time world champion, this would have been his 8th. For Max, this would have been his 1st. I think Lewis was ahead. Max was in another position, but it was behind. Something then caused the safety car to then come out. The safety car normally ever comes out if there's been like an accident or somebody's crashed, which I think in this instance somebody did and I can't remember. So in the penultimate laps of the race, I must also add that Lewis Hamilton was ahead. And there was only a few laps to go, and when the safety car comes out, it basically means you slow down and you trail behind the safety car. Anybody who gets caught speeding over a certain speed when their safety car is out, you can get like a 10-second penalty. You can get you can get penalties for it. So if you're near the pit lanes, it basically means you can get a free pit stop, like change tyres. But if you go in there and you get fresher tyres, I'm sure you can imagine fresher tyres just means you're going to go faster. If you get a certain type of tyre, because there's different types, then that would also determine how long you've got left, etc, etc. So there's 3 types of tyres: softs, mediums and hards. The softs are the fastest, but they don't last you as long, so you've only got a finite number of laps before they say I'm out. You've got the medium tyres, which is, I'm sure you can imagine, it's the medium between 2 extremes. The medium, you can get a lot more laps on, but it is a slower tyre. So it's slower, but it will see you out longer. The hard tyre, again, that one's, if you've got like a really short race and you've got like 40 something laps, if you look after your tyres, you can see the hard tyre lasts you the whole race, or maybe even do a one-stop strategy. So hard tyres are the slowest tyre, but it will last you a long period of time. So strategy-wise, which is why strategy plays such an important part, is that first of all, it depends on what tyres you're starting on. When do you think other people are going to pit? Are you going to pit at the same time? And if you do pit, what tyres are you going to go on to? In the British Grand Prix 2025, it was wet, it was dry, it was wet, it was dry. So the weather was up and down. So in order to kind of get ahead, you may have to take a gamble. Everybody was on inters, which is pretty much like the tyre that you use if it's been raining, right? Lewis Hamilton was like 2 seconds behind Nico Hulkenberg. Decided to pit Lewis, change him into the soft tyre, which I said is the quicker tyre, and hopefully by the time he comes back out, he should be able to make up the distance and get closer to Hulkenberg. Now, as I was watching the race, I was sitting there and I was like, whose idea was it to put him onto softs? It's a risk, but if it pays off, it could be brilliant. But the issue with driving soft tyres in the rain is that it's incredibly slippy. So you have to be like on point, to the point where you can't make a mistake, which lo and behold, that's exactly what Lewis did. Unfortunately, he spun out a little bit, got back on, but because he spun out, he lost time. So I think I think it was like a 7-second gap, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in a Formula One race, that's forever. And I think he ended up finishing the race on like 5 seconds behind. But my thinking would be, if you didn't put him on the intermediates, he would have been fine, and he's 2 seconds behind Hulkenberg anyway. So give him like 4 or 5 laps, which he would have had at that point, because at that point he would have had like 10 laps left. Lewis likely would have overtaken Hulkenberg, but because he changed the softs, which is granted the quicker tyre, by the time he came out, made a bit of a mistake, which ended up losing him that 3rd spot. That's what happened, and that's the impact that strategy, tyres and all that type of stuff can have on a race. So as I said, yellow car came out, Lewis is up front, everybody has to slow down. But most teams decided to pit. So most teams, including Max Verstappen, went in, got fresher tyres. So Max then came out. But as Max came out, there was cars ahead of him because everybody's pitted, right? And this is the first bit of the controversy. So as I said, Lewis was first. I think there was about 4 cars in between Lewis and then Max. Let's say Max was in 5th. The FIA had decided to change the rules in that moment in time during the race and say, okay, the 4 cars that are between Lewis and Max, unlap yourselves. You guys go behind. You guys just, you unlapped yourself. Let Max go into 2nd place, and all the 4 cars that are in between the 2 of you just go back out and let those 2 cars go at it. Most importantly, Max is on fresher tyres, which I just explained to you a second ago. Means he's on quicker tyres. Not to mention, this is all happening on a safety car. And on a safety car, if a safety car's out, you have to go slowly. And I don't know the science behind this, so I'm not going to pretend like I know how it works. But basically, if you're right behind a Formula One car, which you would do under a safety car, if you get close enough, which Lewis technically shouldn't allow that to happen, but if you get close enough, the person in front will essentially tow the person behind, which then gives, the best way I could describe it is it's a bit like the mushrooms in Mario Kart? It's a bit like that. So you're basically giving the person behind you a bit of a power up and a bit more clean air, allowing them to go faster, which then allows them to come behind you, right behind. They then get a bit of a power up and they can go over and overtake you. That's how it works, right? So with that being said, Max has got that advantage because he's got the fresher tyres under a safety car. The second bit of controversy, which again, it's the same person in the FIA, so I think he was the race director or something, don't care for his name because he's full of crap. Anyway, is that it's like watching a World Cup final and the FA say, okay, the offside rule doesn't apply. Literally just towards in the last like 15 minutes of the game, you've got the FA saying, yeah, offside, forget about it. You can run where you want, mate. That's the equivalent of it. Normally, when a safety car is out, a safety car has to be out for at least 2 laps. The FIA pulled in the safety car 1 lap earlier. That's not that deep. It is that deep. If the rules say in black and white the safety car has to be out for 2 laps and you pull it in after 1 and it hasn't completed his lap, that is you basically saying, forget that rule, I'm going to continue to give that driver an advantage. If that safety car's got less of a lap, it then gives Max more time, more laps, and then overtake Lewis, which eventually, unfortunately, happened in the last handful of laps of the race. Season 4 of Drive to Survive that covers the 2021 season, and a lot of Formula 1 fans that don't like Lewis are like, oh, just get over it, it's not that deep. No. Another director in the FIA who I said decided to change the rules midway through, they sacked him. They sacked him because they said that what you did basically impacted the outcome of that race. Now, you would think because they've sacked the guy that made that decision, by technicality, you should overturn the result, because if those 2 changes were not made, and if you didn't have those cars unlap themselves, or if you didn't have the safety car go in sooner than it was technically supposed to, Lewis would have won the race, because he was already ahead and there was 4 cars behind him. So Lewis would have won. But you've quite literally taken the win off him, given it to another driver, and it's been like, oh yeah, well, we shouldn't have done that, but let's keep the result as it is. And then I mentioned in my episode 1 why I hate Christian Horner so much, because if you look at the aftermath of what happened, Lewis he comes off the track after the race is finished. Lewis sits in the car for about 10 minutes. Just single-handedly, this moment here is why Lewis Hamilton is my favourite Formula 1 driver of all time. 10 minutes, had time with his dad. He walked straight up to Max Verstappen and shook his hand and said, fair play. If that's not sportsmanship, then I don't know what is. The 2021 season, Lewis Hamilton was robbed. He should be an 8-time world champion, but he's not. It's a 7-time world champion. Mercedes came out and they weren't able to make a world championship winning car, and then I think we had Max Verstappen dominance for about 4 years. So that's why I didn't like Max. And that's also why I didn't like Christian Horner. He used to look at what other teams were doing and run to the FIA and be like, they've done this, that's not fair, that's not fair. And then the FIA would have to come down and be like, yeah, you can't have that modification on the car. But yeah, so it's been devastating. But it's even heartbreaking to hear the team principal make the message to the FIA. And it's like, Mikey, what is that? Like, you can't do that. That's not fair. That's not right. Now, obviously there's a lot of changes. So this is why I think it goes back to my original point. Toto went up there and made that whole argument. It's like, what are you doing? Like, this is daylight robbery. When we talk about Max Verstappen potentially going over to Mercedes, and I say, as I said in episode 1, why I don't think that's going to work, this is proof as to why I don't think it's going to work. Obviously, Christian Horner is now a free agent. Apparently, there's rumours or there's things through the grapevine that he may go over to Ferrari. Christian Horner, that is. And oh my God, I don't think people get it. Like, to see Christian Horner, team principal of Ferrari, overseeing Lewis, and Toto overseeing Max at Mercedes. Oh, it just screams 2021 drama, darling. It screams the drama of 2021. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't see Christian going over to Ferrari, because Ferrari is like an Italian brand, and most of the people that work in Ferrari or for Ferrari are Italian, and they all speak fluent Italian. So it'd be a massive shake to the system if Christian was to go over. But yeah, that's pretty much what's happened. What I'm going to do from now on is you are going to get podcasts from me every Tuesday. If it is a race weekend, of course, you already know we're covering the entire race, because this season is way too tight to call. It's way too tight to call. Between the 2 McLaren boys, I don't know which one of them is going to do it. I am very much looking forward to watching where the McLaren boys go and seeing who else can kind of catch up behind them. Nonetheless, if you've got to the end of this video, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for doing so. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, or alternatively, if you are listening to this wherever you listen to your podcast, please do just, drop a comment, drop a like, share it to your friends, everything like that. Look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday, but until then, Talking Throttle is out.